Over the past 20 years, the Friendship Bridge has become the main crossing point along the Nepal-Chinese border and a vital link for the landlocked country. Trucks with Chinese goods of all types trundle across the iron structure that traverses the Borchu River, then make the short 3-hour drive down to Nepal's capital, Kathmandu. The valley is a popular tourist spot for visitors seeking peace from the city and discount Chinese goods from the markets along the road. But the gentle flow of the water hides a dark secret. The river is precariously close to a natural disaster on a massive scale. Dan Banda Shrestha, a villager from one community, showed me the height of the river during a flash flood in 1991.
There were trees being carried away, and the Mitri bridge was destroyed. Lalsa bridge was also destroyed. There were small bridges, and then suddenly there was nothing there. When it flooded, I was here. I could smell something. We went to see the bridges, and we could see the water rising above them. There was a lot of water, and you could not see the road. We are all afraid of death. We don't know what will happen.
Flash floods from rain bursts are common during the monsoon season and frequently claim lives. But a greater risk comes not from the rain but the melting glaciers high up in the Himalayas. Numerous glacial lakes make up the source of the Borchu River on the China side of the border. Glacial lakes all have natural banks made of loose rocks and ice with a small runoff into the river. If the pressure of the water gets too great, the natural wall collapses. Experts claim that due to climate change, 9 of the lakes in the Borchu basin are growing at an alarming rate and pose an imminent threat of bursting their banks and sending a wall of water up to 15 meters down the valley and into Nepal. In mountainous communities such as Nepal, Bhutan and western China, the threat of such floods increases as glacial lakes grow with a warming climate. As unpredictable as earthquakes, a glacial lake outburst has a similar effect to a tsunami, sweeping away anything in its path and occurring so fast that there is little chance to escape. In a conference organised by mountainous countries to discuss the problems caused by climate change, I met Director of the International Eco-Safety Cooperative Organisation, Professor Jiang Mingjun. Later in Beijing, I caught up with him and asked what the threat was to Chinese communities.
这个中国这个因为气候变化引发的这个灾害啊，应该说形势相当严峻的。青海、四川、西藏也是气候变化的重灾区。最近呢，国家发出了这个灾害预警，实施灾害预警，也是中国政府近几年所关注、所重视的一个主要课题。
The last glacial outburst flood in the Borchu Basin happened in 1981, sweeping away people, houses, bridges and businesses. Now, with significantly larger glacial lakes in the mountains above, the next flood could be 3 times the size of the previous outburst. My guide down the Borchu River from the Nepal side was Pradeep Mool from the International Centre for Integrated Mountain Development. I asked him what was a danger that researchers in his organisation had forecast.
Up to 7 meters, 5 to 7 meters from the river bed will be flood height. And discharge is here at the Friendship Bridge here. In 1981, more than 5,000 cubic meters per second. And if it happened now again, and if there is another lake like Gangshicho and Lumichimi, one of those big lakes burst out, even the bridge we see behind us will not survive. Because that lake, if it bursts out, it will be much higher than the 81 flood scenario, 10 meters higher than the 1981 flood scenario.
The floods are nothing new, and for centuries communities living along the banks have taken precautions, building their homes high in the hills above the floodplains. In 1981, remarkably, only 5 people died in spite of a 5-meter wall of water travelling down the valley. As trade between China and Nepal has soared, so communities along the road that runs down the valley have also grown. New homes, businesses and even schools now populate the dangerous floodplains. The Integrated Center for International Mountain Development estimate there are more than 10,000 people living within the disaster zone and around $184 worth of property. Walking along the river, I came across a small community at Norkilla, where I asked Devi Maya Tamang whether she was aware that her home could be swept away at any time.
We are afraid to travel when it floods during the summer, but we are careful. The floods are very unpredictable. They can come during the day or night, just like weather. I've heard about climate change on the television, but I'm hearing that the river is also getting dirty. But we have so many things to do and we just don't have time to find out more about this.
As frightening as the situation sounds, there are engineering solutions that can release water from the glacial lake slowly and reduce the risk. Though in the case of the Borchu River, it requires cooperation between the governments of Nepal and China. Professor Jiang Mingjun has been working on this.
这个因为前不久，我们在尼泊尔啊，参加高山国家气候变化会议。那么在这次会议上，就与会各国就提出了如何开展国际合作来应对气候变化，尤其就中国和这个尼泊尔边境。
The Borchu River is just one of many rivers that cross the Chinese-Nepali border, as well as many more within the borders of the two countries, with a growing risk of a glacial lake outburst. With thousands of lives and millions of dollars of property at stake, the question remains whether those tasked with setting up the early warning system and releasing the water pressure on the glacial lake banks will be able to complete the task before a disaster on a much larger scale than we've seen before is unleashed. This is DJ Clark in Kathmandu, Nepal for China Daily.